Mike, what day is it, Mike? Well, you know what it is. It's the middle of the week. I hope you're having a good one. It's Wednesday morning, September 11th. We'll never forget. And 7:30 in the morning. Let's check out those hazards today because we got a lot to talk about. A lot of Francine, of course, in our discussions, but there are things going on in other parts of the country, starting in California. We have some smoke here too, not really depicted on our watches and warnings, but we do have wind advisories for parts of Southern California, as well as red flag warnings, and red flag warnings widespread through the Intermountain West and even into the plains. Some windy and even dry conditions here. And look at that, winter weather advisory for portions of, I'd say the mountains between Missoula and Kalispell, looks like. So maybe some snow here in some of those mountain passes. A little bit of fog up there in Michigan, in the thumb. And then, of course, Francine. Lots of hurricane warnings going on here, especially Louisiana, the coastal areas of Mississippi, Alabama, and even a little bit of the Florida Panhandle. Flooding is going to be an issue here as well. And that's what we're going to get into as we take a look, zoomed in to Hurricane Francine. This is the latest off the shore of Louisiana here, and this is the reflectivity. So this is the radar, the future radar, according to the European model. And as we go forward in time, we can see that Hurricane Francine looks like it's going to strengthen a little bit as we go. Currently, Francine has top winds at 90 miles an hour with some higher gusts moving off to the northeast. Looks like some strengthening will occur as it makes landfall this afternoon/evening. So we could be looking at a Category 2 hurricane heading into Louisiana, smack dab in the middle of the coast here. Here's New Orleans. Here's Lake Pontchartrain. And that eye wall with those hurricane force winds extending a good 40 miles away from the center is going to move right through the center of Louisiana coast into eastern Louisiana, and you can see that huge rain shield heading into Mississippi. Once it makes landfall, it's going to weaken rather quickly. We'll be looking at tropical storm Francine and then eventually tropical depression Francine as it heads into Mississippi, but very heavy rainfall here and still lots of wind, which could down trees, of course, and then heavy rainfall, flooding possibilities all the way from the Florida Panhandle up into Mississippi, Alabama, eventually here, Arkansas. And this low is going to make a beeline for Memphis as we go through time. So straight up the center of Mississippi and then veering back towards the west a little bit, right on top of Memphis pretty much. But we do see some heavier rain too off to the east. So Alabama, you're not going to be left out. Could be some heavy rain showers all the way into Georgia and Florida as well, as Hurricane Francine will be making landfall later today. We'll take a wider look of the country here, and again, we're looking at our European model. We can barely see the time stamps here, but there they are. 9/11, that's today. 12Z, that's about 7 o'clock, so a half hour or so ago, and we can see Francine, making landfall later today. But we also have a system in the northwest. And so, we're going to have some rain. We're going to have some wind. We're going to have some cooler temperatures and even some snow possible with this low as it moves through Idaho into Montana. Meanwhile, Francine dumping all of its rain down here as we get into the 12th now. This is 12Z. So tomorrow morning, and then in as we get through later in the morning, you see that snow coming down, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming. It's pretty exciting. I do love fall, and I love winter even more. So I'm a little bit weird like that. And then we see the rain still coming down here and cooler temperatures in the northwest as Francine continues to lift on the 13th at 9Z, so early morning on Friday. And starts to rain itself out a little bit near the low, but we see some heavy rainfall still coming down here into Georgia, for example. We'll take you through the weekend on this. Still heavy rainfall across portions of the southeast. Kentucky's going to get in on this a little bit. Illinois, possibly Indiana. We see this front moving through the northern plains with some showers and storms here, which we'll show you on our severe outlook coming up. Rain still in the southeast as we get into, this is Saturday morning, later Saturday morning into Saturday afternoon. Rain still coming down in portions of the southeast. The northwest clears, but a little bit of rain now coming onto the Washington coast. I have this side of it cut off. I didn't mean to do that, but anyway, too late to fix it now. I like to record these as if they're live, and then I don't do any editing, and then I'll just post it for you. So that's what's coming. And then we see the end of our run here as we get into Sunday morning. Still some showers and storms possible in the northeast. So I wanted to do the radar first, just to give you an idea of what's going on with Francine and what's happening in the Pacific Northwest. And so our weather spotlight. Back to Francine and the particulars, right? So 7 o'clock this morning, Hurricane Francine, 90-mile-an-hour winds with higher gusts. Again, some slight strengthening expected before landfall this afternoon / early evening. Probably a Category 2 hurricane. Looks like that 100-mile-an-hour forecast is going to be pretty close. And then once it makes landfall, we'll see it quickly turn back into a tropical storm and then a tropical depression as we get into tomorrow afternoon in central Mississippi. But lots of wind, lots of rain. Here are your tornado threats today. Landfalling hurricanes like to spin up tornadoes, and that's the possibility here from eastern Louisiana, southern Mississippi into Alabama, and into the panhandle of Florida. The wind profile looks like this. This is the probabilities of tropical storm force winds near you. So winds 45 or 40 miles an hour plus, pretty much. And it says in the key 1 minute average of 39 miles an hour plus. So here's your probabilities, and it's 100% there for where we're expecting landfall in Louisiana. Houston getting spared from the storm for the most part, just a slight chance of those tropical storm force winds. But tropical storm force winds will be going into possibly even central Mississippi, and with all that rain, that could bring some trees down, as far north as almost Jackson. So be on the lookout for that. Of course, storm surge, if you're along the coast, could be quite dangerous, up to 10 feet in the red, up to 9 feet in the orange, and even New Orleans up to 6 feet of storm surge, including Lake Pontchartrain, 4 to 6 foot swells possible here, storm surge, as that wind pushes all that water and it becomes a wall of water to hit the coast. So, the Mississippi coastline, Alabama coastline could see surge up to 6 feet here. So be on the lookout for that. Here's the rainfall for Francine. And of course, as you would expect, heaviest in Louisiana. And that's where we see our 6 to 8. Possible. The yellow 4 to 6 is widespread right through Mississippi, from Jackson up to, say, Holly Springs, almost Memphis. And then to the east, too, we see that heavy rainfall, 4 to 6 inches, maybe as far east as Panama City here, Mobile, Alabama, too. So, a lot of rain along with a lot of wind, and even the dark green, 2 to 4 inches. If that comes down fast enough, that's going to cause some flooding problems. And that's all the way up through Memphis, up into Illinois, western Kentucky, even Nashville included in that. So here's your surface map for today with everything that's going on. So it's kind of crazy up in the northwest. We have severe weather, heavy rain, flash flooding possible up there in Montana. I don't know about severe, but flash flooding and heavy rain possible in Montana. Snow, as we showed you on the future radar. Widespread showers for the northwest and even into the Rockies and portions of the plains. And then out ahead of that front, you see moving through Oregon, Nevada, Utah, critical fire weather possible here. Wind, dry, warm, watch out. Here comes Francine. I think we've covered that pretty well. Lows this morning. We have widespread 50s all the way from West Texas, north through the plains, all the way up to the Canadian border, over to the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, and then further to the north, though, New York State and north into Maine. We see 40s this morning, 40s for the Central Rockies, back to the 50s up there in northwest Montana, even some 60s to start the day there for eastern Washington. 50s in the Willamette Valley, 50s in Central California, but cooler in Northern California, even on the coast, and of course, near Yosemite and whatnot. And then a hot start to the desert southwest, where it's going to be hot again today. 107 Phoenix, 10 something there, Las Vegas. I can't quite make it out. Even 90s for a lot of Texas, especially West Texas, 80s to near 90, I should say. Same into the Central Plains, and even a little bit warmer in South Dakota, a couple 90s there. 80s into the Midwest for the most part in the Ohio Valley. And then we see some 70s up there in the Northeast, and 70s with our hurricane, that rain-cooled air. And temperatures in the 80s for Central California, a little more manageable. Surface for tomorrow just show that cool off in the west, especially the northwest, with our chance for rain, even some snow, Yellowstone, Montana, Idaho. But then we see our heavy rainfall still possible for the mountains of northwest Montana, and severe weather in the plains in Montana, a possibility for tomorrow. Our critical fire weather possible moves a little further east, with warm conditions, windy conditions, and dry conditions all combined. South Dakota through Nebraska into Colorado and parts of Wyoming. Francine, now a tropical storm tomorrow, moving into Mississippi with our chance of heavy rain here, and severe weather shifting off to the east, and we'll show you that here in a second. Highs tomorrow. There you see a lot of 80s, plains to near 90 into the Midwest. A bigger area of 70s, rain-cooled from Francine. And then we get into the west where it's cooling off, although the desert southwest still hot, 101 Tucson. Now here's our severe weather for tomorrow. So a chance of severe weather from the Florida Panhandle into Alabama, a little bit of Georgia here, and then also up in eastern Montana. And we even have a slight chance of tornadoes in eastern Montana tomorrow as that system moves into the plains. Meanwhile, our better chances of tornadoes, the 5% chance in the brown, again, Florida, Alabama, and a little bit of Georgia. Your rainfall for the next 2 days, of course, what's going on with Francine in the southeast, and then up in the northwest, quite a bit of rain. That's why we have flooding possibilities for especially parts of Montana. We could see over 2 inches of rain here, maybe over 3 inches of rain, especially in the mountainous areas. And that goes back into portions of Idaho as well. And not to be left out, Oregon could see 1/2 inch to 1 inch in the Willamette Valley, more in the Cascades. And the surface for Friday, Francine has now become a low. Was a post-tropical cyclone Francine. Okay, that's good. But still, scattered showers and heavy rain possible in the southeast especially. Our snow still persistent up there, Yellowstone, and then into Montana, back to Idaho. Some rain showers now moving into the northern plains. Highs on Friday look like this, heating up in Texas. I'm sorry to say that. West Texas looking pretty hot, mid to upper 90s here. I'm sorry, mid 90s here. I'm sorry, again, upper 90s here. Again, no editing. All right, and then temperatures, cooler with that rain shield from what was Francine across the mid-Mississippi Valley into the Ohio Valley. But still 80s, Iowa, Ohio. 70s, though, as you get into Pennsylvania, up into New York and further north. And even 70s for North Carolina. So kind of nice, a little bit warmer there in Florida, in the upper 80s mostly. Cooling off in the west, especially up there in Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, and the mountainous areas. Very pleasant here, kind of fall. And warming up a little bit now in western Oregon, Washington, but not too bad. Highs on Saturday. We still see the heat now in Texas, cooling off a little bit in the desert southwest. So maybe we'll break our streak of 100-degree days in Phoenix, 99 Saturday. It'll be close. But, 97 for Amarillo is warm. So, 99 Dallas area. So Texas starting to heat back up into Oklahoma City, 99, 95. Yeah, 95. Okay. And then Sunday, here's your highs. Again, as we look at the weekend, and some of that heat in Texas shifts a little further to east, so some slight relief for West Texas, but 100 there along the Red River. I do believe that's Wichita Falls. 90s in the Central Plains, but then 80s as you head further north in Northern Plains, Midwest, Ohio Valley, some 70s up there, especially in the Northeast, although that's mostly 80s. All right, for the West, that's where the cool stuff is, and that is reflected in our 6 to 10 day temperatures. Cool in the West. They've suffered through some heat, and they're going to get some relief. Even the desert Southwest will get in on some cooler temperatures, but our best chance for the below average temperatures will be California, Nevada, and Oregon, even into really Washington. That 1 degree lighter shade of blue, but that's still 60% chance of below average temperatures. And then, the eastern 2/3 of the country looks like will be on the warm side, or at least above average. Precipitation wise, we're looking at the Northwest for the best chance of the wettest weather, above average precipitation, but even through the plains, a slight chance of above average precipitation, all the way to the mid-Atlantic and parts of the Southeast into Florida. The driest will be up Great Lakes, up into New England, and a little bit of New Mexico, far west Texas, and along the Texas Gulf Coast. But that's what's happening with Francine. Landfall later this afternoon/evening into Louisiana. Category 2 hurricane likely, with top winds sustained around 100 miles an hour. So you know what to do. Hunker down if you haven't got out of Dodge already, if you're in that area. Otherwise, stay safe. We're praying for you. And we'll keep you updated on what's going on tomorrow right here on The Weather. Mike, thank you so much for tuning in.